Welcome, Tara Culton, to the Dish with Dina podcast. I am so grateful, honored, and absolutely thrilled to have you join me today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you are so welcome, Dina. I am so excited to be here today after we have tried so many times. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I always like to share a little bit about our backgrounds with whomever
Hmm.
it is that I have guests on. And sometimes I don't know the people I'm interviewing, but in the case of you and I, we did. We have met before. We had a lot of crossover and collaborations in the past handful
Yes.
of years. I'm actually even going to tag in this episode our Instagram live from, I think, 2021, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
think it was 2021 myself.
So this is fantastic to have you back on here. I'm really so pleased. And I'd love to
Thank you.
see, what's been going on in the last handful of years. So let's start off first with share with our listeners and now our viewers on YouTube who you are and how you would best describe yourself.
I am Tara Culton, and I am a peer recovery specialist. Most importantly, let me back up. Most importantly, I'm a mom and a grandmom or gammy girl to one beautiful 5-year old. And any day now, I'm here on baby watch. I have a new grandbaby on the way any day now. Any day now.
Oh,
Yeah,
congratulations ahead of time.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Yeah, she's due July 11th, but we are officially on baby watch. So any moment now, I'll get a call. But what I do as a peer recovery specialist is that I use my lived experience of mental health conditions to help others on their journey toward recovery from mental health conditions. And it's a journey, it's not a destination. So I do that. I am also an emotional CPR educator. And what that means, emotional CPR, is that I sit with you in your distress. I sit with you in your discomfort, not saying anything, but just feeling what you're feeling, allowing the emotional energy between us to progress. Because what I say, Dina, all the time is that, hey, we're the experts of ourselves. I am also a state trainer for the National Alliance on Mental Illness, which means I train the trainers, and I'm really excited about that. I also volunteer in other ways. And there are some other things that I do.
One of the things that I first want to ask you, especially in the world of mental health, and especially since you mentioned you're coming from it in a lived experience, and honestly,
Mhm.
at this point, with all the things that we've been through here, globally, et cetera, I really feel like I'm hard pressed to find anybody who hasn't had some
Who
sort of
hasn't?
mental health issue. And so to be transparent, to be vulnerable, and to put yourself out there is fantastic. However, there are also limitations to spreading ourselves too thin, burning out, being somebody who is that support person and then not necessarily taking care of ourselves. Can you share
Mhm.
with us a little bit about how you initially got involved in some of these things? Was it networking? Was it you were working already? Was it that people reached out to you and said you would be great at this? Like, where did you first draw the connection that you had something to offer?
The first thing I do as one with lived experience, my psych nurse actually suggested that I get involved with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I kept saying, I don't know who she is. Like, you really need to connect with NAMI. And so she would laugh. And finally I said, okay, let me go check this out. I did. And then the then program director said, I think you'll really be good in this program, which is a program called In Our Own Voice. And then after that, a girlfriend and I said, okay, well, let's get together and do these talks with tea. And it was from that jumping point, I was going to put it off November 2017, and I was going to put it off to 2018. And she says, no, we're doing this in December. So December 7th, 2017 was the first talks with T, and it was in-house, it was in person. And then when COVID came, I did a little online. And so now I'm going back to doing some things online and some things in person. And that's how it got started. And then I have people now calling me saying, I need my talk with T. So I'm like, okay, there is a need out there. Coming from the faith-based, I'm also a clergywoman, coming from the faith-based perspective to not overly spiritualize this and make it plain and practical for everybody.
That's something I very much appreciate too, because no matter what, you always feel like you don't want anybody to have an already pre-existing agenda when you're coming to share something very vulnerable. You want that support there without anybody
Absolutely.
judging you. And so
Absolutely.
let's talk a little bit too about the transition from in person, most of the in-person experiences to the virtual setting where, I mean, if you're anything like me, and I've shared this a lot on the previous episodes, where I teach and I do things like this, and most of the stuff that I've been doing the last handful of years have been remote, and that's fine also because it allows people to access me no matter where they are in the world and vice versa, but it can become quite fatiguing. It can become quite isolating
Yeah.
because that energy. So, what are some of the things that you notice as far as differences and maybe even similarities of how you navigate both being in an in person situation and having to had switch to remote, even if it was temporarily?
Um, the in-person experience allows me to read body language. It allows me, there were people who would come every month. I had it once a month. There were people who would come every single month. And I had about two or three people that would never say anything, but that they would be sitting back there crying. I could tell that they were absorbing the information. And then one time I had a pastor friend who was sitting there, didn't say a word the whole time. It wasn't, the body language was good, but just didn't say anything. And afterwards came and shared an experience with me. So that's the experience of being in person. Virtually, people don't turn on their cameras a lot. So that energy is not quite there. And what I had to do is say, well, the energy is within you, Tara. You have to bring the energy. They will participate in the chat. And so I'm having to go between the chat and them. And I had to learn how to navigate that without uh, decreasing is the word I want to use, decreasing the level of expectancy because they expect that I'm going to come on and just be Tara. That's what they expect. So I had to learn how to navigate that. And it is different. It is different. And like as you said, Dina, it can be exhausting. It can be exhausting if I'm going from dealing with a client in my the other part of my life, which is a uh, uh, virtual assistant to then switching roles. I'm doing that. I'm talking with a client, and then I'm getting on talking with somebody with autism. It can be quite challenging, but that's how I navigate it. I navigate it by saying, well, excuse me, this is how I navigate it. I say, hey, Tara, you signed up for this. This is an assignment given to you, you believe, by God. So you are going to move forward in this no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too. When we're done with the session and the camera turns off, then it's like, oh, I need to breathe a minute. I need to go stand outside in the sun, just kind of like
Absolutely. That part.
regenerate. And so let's talk a little bit too before we get into some of the more deeper discussions. What is a current week in the life of you? Because like me, you don't really necessarily have a traditional, conventional 9 to 5 type of thing. Or maybe you do at this point. I don't remember where you've left off, but in
Mm-mm,
the sense of like, what is
mm-mm.
a typical or current week in the life of you?
A week in my life, believe it or not, consists of a lot of medical appointments. I don't have a regular 9 to 5. I take project by project. People come to me. Everyone comes to me so far by word of mouth, and I just rely. I'm like, okay, give me this day my daily bread. Um, and so I have a lot of medical issues going on as a result of mental health challenges. And what I mean by that is that when you go into a deep, dark depression, you don't take care of yourself very well. And you're not eating like you're supposed to eat. The nutrition is off, and you know, other issues come up. I'll give you an example. Week before last, I had 4 different medical appointments every day, back to back to back. And so that entails trying to get up, trying to get out, um, then traveling to the appointment, being at the appointment, then getting back home. Well, that's a full day. So working a regular 9 to 5 just doesn't fit into that schedule at all. So I do that. And then in between time to take care of myself, I veg out on home improvement shows.
You're recognizing priorities. And let's just first also say we are very fortunate if we are able to be able to accommodate the things that we need to do, the resources that we have available, the services
Hmm.
that are provided to us. Not
Absolutely.
everybody is able to have transportation or insurance
Hmm.
coverages or money or be able to take a day off of work or whatever the case may
Right,
be.
right.
So I'm very grateful that you're able to do that and be able to prioritize your mental and your physical health as well,
Hmm.
because then how else are you going to give back to the community that needs you? And yeah, and also having the amount of resources that you do, because sometimes it's quite hard even to get an appointment with somebody depending on what you're dealing with. And let's also just give props to the healthcare community as well, who's been going through it and spreading themselves very thin and are
Oh,
possibly
yes,
understaffed as well. So
yes.
huge applause to everyone who's in this struggle, whatever end you're in it. I was making some notes on here too. As far as the project by project basis, I think that's very important to acknowledge that not everybody has to have something that looks like a typical traditional thing. So, if the people who are listening and
Absolutely.
watching this, if there are things that you're struggling with, if you're feeling like some kind of structure, routine, schedule does not serve you anymore, if there is a way to communicate to that, if you have a boss that allows some flexibility, or if you are now able to remove yourself from a situation and create something that is your own. And I am the first one to admit, come tax season, I am not happy because there's a lot of stuff I do that is, now I have to juggle and figure out how to make this work. And that's what happens when you don't have a typical 9 to 5. But the point is it allows me, just like you, Tara, to be able to
Yes,
accommodate things that I know I have to be able to accommodate with
yes,
my physical and mental well-being.
absolutely.
The word of mouth thing is very huge too. I mean, I know that you're on social media. I know that you contribute to as an author to things, like your name is out there. I know that obviously you do talks and workshops and things like this as
Hmm.
well.
Hmm.
But the fact that people are actively promoting you without you necessarily having to ask them to do that that's really a true testament to your work. So congratulations on all of that as well.
Thank you so much. I had someone that I'd done, they called me about a year ago and they were celebrating a momentous birthday or milestone birthday, excuse me. And they said, I was referred to you by so and so. I need this and I need it in 2 weeks. And they had given me just their notes from a sermon that they had done. And so I thought within that something else that could be pulled out and did it. And they thanked me, the project was done, do 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 da. And they recently contacted me. They said, you're the only person I want to do this. They had another project to do. And they said, you have a way. And I don't even know how to describe it yet, but I have a way of seeing what you can't see because most people are in the forest, so they don't see the trees. They really don't see the trees. And I had another client come to me and say, "Hey, I need your help. I need you to do this, that, and other." And I did. And they said, "You put in stuff I didn't even know I needed." So those types of testimonials and those types of things get me. I mean, people will just call and say, "Hey, I need this, da 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 da." And I am fortunate. I'm fortunate that people trust my work. I'm fortunate that I have realized this is the big one. This is a big one, Dave. I have realized I can't do everything. I have realized I don't want a six-figure big business just for the sake of having a six-figure business because then I have to manage the six-figure business. Like that didn't work for me. I totally burned down a business by my own behavior, my own habits, because I would get overwhelmed. And I said, okay, you don't want to operate like that. No, that doesn't work. That puts me in a stress mode, which then triggers the mental health stuff, which then triggers the medical stuff, and we run round and around in this circle all over again. So I am very blessed. I am very blessed to have people that come to me and say, "Hey, I need you to do this." And I focus on copywriting, graphic design, and some author support. As well as email marketing. So those are the types of things that I do. And I want to go back to the medical world and how they are really, really struggling right now because I called 2 months ago to get an appointment with endocrinology that I need. The appointment is in March of 2025. That's the first available appointment. So I tell people, don't be too hard when they say they can't get you in. They cannot get you in because so many people are struggling, and I am fortunate to have resources. So I don't take that for granted. Anyway, that's it.
Yeah, and I mean, let's just also disclaim too, if something was an emergency, you probably just walk into an emergency room somewhere, but you are purposely waiting to be seen by a particular provider, and that
Right.
is what they have available. So you're just going to sit on it until March
Yeah.
of next year. Let's talk a little bit about when you are the service, right? We don't sell products, we sell ourselves.
We
What
do.
role does things like social media, marketing, the way that you present your persona and your personality to people? Let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of putting ourselves out there.
I'm trying to get the social media thing down pat. I mean, I have the virtual solutions with TLC page, I have my personal page, and then I have the Talks with Tara C page. What I'm doing this month is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And what I decided to do this month is that I'll start today, later on. I've already laid out my post. But social media is so challenging for me. I can get on there and, make a statement. I can get on there and do certain things, but the constant upkeep of what you actually have to do, does not work for me. So I've decided that this month, okay, we'll post like 3 times a week. And other than the virtual solutions with TLC is the virtual assistant aspect of me, part of what I do. But on Talks with T and my personal page, they're going to be the same thing. I'm not going to try to follow the gurus and put 2 or 3 different things out because it just doesn't work for me. I'm not trying to reach 1 million followers. If that happens, okay. But what I need to do is be real, because if somebody's watching me and trying to do this, they need to know it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and you have to be committed. And the main thing I would say, Gina, you have to know what you want. And it took me a while to figure out there are a lot of things I can do, a lot of things I can do. I'm 63. My birthday was last Tuesday. So I, I have been doing this since I was 18 years old. That's a lot of years, a lot of experience. I have been doing it, getting paid since I was 20 years old. So it's a lot of years, a lot of experience in this arena, and I can do a lot of things. But should I do them? That's the question. Should I do them? Should I try to post 2 or 3 times a day, 5 to 7 days a week? Should I try to do this on all 3 platforms and then engage LinkedIn and then engage YouTube? Should I? The answer for me is no, I shouldn't do that, not at this time. And should I get help or acquire somebody to help me? Probably so. But I'm not at that point yet. So it's like, no, just figure out what you can do, figure out what you want to do first, then figure out what you can do of those things you want to do. But should I be doing it all? And I think that's a question that we all must ask ourselves. What is the end goal? My end goal in all of this is to be in a position that Talks with T would just take off, and I can help more people in the mental health arena, and particularly those in the that don't have the resources, that don't have access, to show them how they can access that information. So, but that's how, so talking about social media, yeah, that's a book of air for me. That's a book
Yeah.
of air for me.
I am listening to the language you're using and I'm thinking how applicable it is to so many other things in life, about quality over quantity, about where we focus our efforts and attention, about the driving force of our purpose of things, like our personal and
Yes,
professional mission statements, and also the language around consistency, right? So, in the case of social media marketing, whether you're an entrepreneur or you have administrative assistants doing this, what people expect to see from you, people who are actively following you and wanting to engage, especially since it's free, right? We're online, we're giving
right.
content out for free and our knowledge and expertise out for free. And when I talk to people about this too, and myself included, like you were just saying, 3 to 5 times a day, every day, are you like, I can't, there's no physical and mental way I can possibly do that. Also, hello, then I'm detracting from other things that I need to do in my life. So already committing, like not getting ahead of ourselves and already committing to something that is much more manageable and realistic, I think is always a good place to start. And I'm thinking in terms of
Absolutely.
lifestyle factors as well. Like you mentioned earlier, and this is kind of what connected us in the very beginning, because it was a lot of nutrition focused stuff that I was working on in the beginning of my podcast. And I've kind of switched more to like theme related wellness topics. But
Uh-huh.
everything's related to everything, my friends. And so if we think about what are we committing to, the small sustainable steps that we can take, maybe it's just get up and just brush your teeth. Get up and
Yeah.
have, one vegetable. Just do one vegetable today. Like whatever it is that you know that you can define as successful for that moment in time, then that makes you, I think, then feel a little bit more inspired to continue doing that. But when you're overwhelmed with so many things, you're going to just burn out or fall off track, or then the language too, right? We start saying, I'm a bad person. I feel guilty. I'm not
Oh,
good
yes.
enough. I'm not whatever. So, can you share a little bit about that too, Tara, in the approaches that you're
Mhm.
taking? And I know obviously everybody's different. You have probably an
Yes.
individualized thing, like you said, you can kind of tune in on things. What would you say are some of the more prevalent issues of concern that tend to come up in whatever generation population you're working with right now, and what might be one or two things you might provide as words of wisdom to somebody who might be struggling in whatever sense they might be struggling right now. And of course, I'm always going to disclaim, we are not your healthcare providers. Please
Oh,
seek proper medical and mental health attention. But in this discussion, if you can drop some words of wisdom, what would
yes.
they be?
Yes. Nothing I say here is meant to be medical advice, only for encouragement and edification and all that good stuff. Okay. One area, I'll give you an example that just happened to me. I isolated for about 3 months because I was so overwhelmed. And I just cut off everybody. And there were people I talked to, like I talked to my family, due to a situation I had um, with my home, with my partner. But for the most part, those calls were quick, on and off, on and off. And then because I isolated, there was one person who recognized it, gave me a call. They were in tears on the phone. I didn't respond to that call initially, but because I was overwhelmed by so many other things, I just began to pull back and isolate. And when you isolate, you start really having thoughts that are not actually facts. You have to, you just go down this long, dark road. My population that I serve is basically women, population is 45 plus. They are for virtual solutions with TLC. My main population are faith-based, service-focused female entrepreneurs with 5+ years of experience. What I have found within that population is that I end up encouraging them on the mental health side without actually saying anything mental health. What I have found with people that just call, like, there are people that see me, they're dropping my inbox and say, I need a talk with T. And what I have found is the same age group. It's the pressure to be perfect, the pressure to show up on social media like you have it all together, the pressure off social media to be the expert in whatever it is, because social media has encouraged us. I can tell you just this morning when I was like, oh, what in the world am I going to do? What am I going to put on? And I said, you're going to put on what you would normally put on if you're around the house. I'm gonna put on my sparkly shirt. Those are the things that the pressure to be perfect, the pressure to show up as being perfect, the pressure we put on ourselves to try to get every single thing done every single day without actually making a plan and being realistic about it. Um, the pressure to not only you gotta be perfect, you gotta show up perfect, you gotta make all these things happen in the same day, but then you have the pressure to make a whole lot of money. I see that a lot. I hear that a lot. I want to make six figures. Okay, why? Beyond the why that you hear career coaches, what's your why? I want to know why you want to do this. If you come to me when you come to me, you're automatically going to get the mental health side of me. I may not say that, but that is just part of who I am. But I want to know, why do you want to create this planner? Why do you want to? Is it just to make money, or what's the end goal? And we as females, particularly as mothers, as aunties, as friends, as grandmothers, organic girl, as I am, um, we have so many different roles that we that we are. It's not that we play. We are those roles. We are the sister. We are the daughter. We are the mother. We are the gammy girl or grandmother. We are the auntie. We are the great great auntie. We, all of those things. We, as this is the book according to Tara. First chapter, first verse. We need to stop and take a minute or two or three or the whole hour and find out what it is we really want to do and dismiss all of the rest. It doesn't matter what's happening on social media. It doesn't matter that your, $25,000 a year coach told you to do that. Are you capable of executing that? And are you ready to execute that? I don't think that we do that enough. And I think it hurts our mental health. I think because what happens is we get involved and we start going down that road, Dina, and we don't realize that we're so focused on making all this money over here, or we got to have X number of appearances over here, that we don't realize we're neglecting ourselves. And the self-care goes beyond the mani, the pedi, the massage. It invades your finances. You got to self-care with your finances. You've got to self-care in your relationships. You got to self-care in your spirituality, whatever that is for you. You have to, there's so many areas that encompasses the self-care, and we don't do that. We simply don't. And I think we should.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's not like anything that we are currently dealing with in this day and age is any different than what everyone else was doing decades and decades ago, as far as responsibilities and roles that they
Right.
are, not like you said, not playing, that they are. The only difference is I just was talking about this the other day with somebody too. I think this is the first time in life that we are expected to be on all the time,
Bingo.
right? With
That you
DMs
are
and
right.
text messages. And I mean, nobody even calls anybody anymore. We're just shooting off emails and shooting off text messages. And it's like, so this is, let's talk about boundary setting too, right, Tara? Like the boundaries with ourselves and the boundaries with others, of how we can allow them to understand how to treat us and what we will or will not be able to do to accommodate their needs. And so,
Right.
even if we've gotten into that rut where, well, we've always been doing it this way and we don't want to disappoint anybody, or we don't want to disappoint ourselves, but then in the realistic realm, like you were saying, what is the plan? What is the purpose? How are you executing this? Is it feasible? Is it doable? I mean, something has to be sacrificed. And ultimately, it's going to be our own mental health and physical health if we continue to be pulling from, drawing from the empty vase here and the empty well. And so I really feel like you've hit on so many touch points, the things that we discuss a lot of times, like the pillars or the dimensions of wellness, that it's
Hmm.
all interrelated. It's all interrelated.
It
So
is. It
yeah,
is.
and people with millions and billions of dollars aren't doing great in other aspects of their world. And I think social media also plays a role in hiding that, like putting this facade up
Right.
that we all think is the ideal. And one of the best things I think I've heard is about wherever you are, whoever's listening to this, wherever you are in your book of life, right? Don't compare your chapter to someone else's chapter, because who knows what they've put into it and how far down they've gone, and appearances are just appearances. And so I think that's also an issue too, Tara, that people who might feel insecure or
Yes.
lack confidence feel like they need to be doing. And it's just, we're all vibrating on this level that is just, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get back to
It is.
basics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Get back to
agree.
basics.
I think that we don't respect our own boundaries because we don't even know what boundaries are.
Mhm.
One of the things I did for my birthday is I decided to have a pajama party of one. That's me. I actually put a vacation responder message up, that says, I'll be away from my desk until this day and this time. When I return, I will start, uh, uh, when I get back, I'll start returning emails, et cetera, and give me 36 to 48 business hours. And I did not open my laptop. I literally, on my birthday, sat here and vegged out on television and did not feel guilty for the first time in a long time. I set the boundary for myself. And setting a boundary, let me say this, setting a boundary is not to keep you out. It's not to keep me stuck in. It's to respect myself in the ways that are important to me. If I say to you, you can't come around me, that's a boundary. That's not a boundary. You're trying to control the person. That is so not a boundary. And in business and in life as well, but in business, when it comes to business, people don't set boundaries. It's like, I work from this hour to this hour. I I'm not available on the weekends or whatever, your hours are or whatever. I do this, I won't do that. And when you feel people, what we call
Mhm.
scope creeping, when people start to scope creep, I had to learn because see, allowed them, I trained them how to treat me, and they got mad about it. So I had to go back and say, no, we're really not going to do this. We're not going to do this. And I had to go back and say, and boundaries come as far as setting your fees as well, because you have to get paid in order to eat. You got to eat. And I remember recently, a couple of weeks ago, somebody reached out and they wanted me to do some work and they wanted me to do it in less than 10 business days. And it involved a lot of work, a website and da 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 da. I quoted them the price and they said, but I could have done it myself. Okay. And I didn't feel bad about it. But Dina, can I tell you how long it has taken me or it took me to get to that point to hold those boundaries and not keep stepping back? We don't do it. And then we get mad with them because we've trained them how to treat us. But we didn't have the boundaries. We didn't set the personal boundaries. We didn't set the professional boundaries. So that social media, the fast pace in which we live,
Right.
everybody's expecting everything now. It has a negative effect on us.
Yeah, and that's a lesson we can continue to learn because we have different relationships with different people in our lives throughout
Absolutely.
our lives. And so, okay, so maybe you forgot to set a boundary with somebody who is taking a lot of energy from you. Start now. Have that uncomfortable, as I say, these
That's
uncomfortable but
right.
necessary conversations of let it
Yes,
right.
yes.
And if they're not open to hearing it, then I'm sorry to tell you that person is not allowed to be in your circle any longer because you need
That's
to
right.
protect yourself from that. And I think this also speaks to this whole, abundance mindset and limiting beliefs discussion too, where if we're
Hmm.
so grateful, I just got a job and I will do whatever I should do, and I'm going to be super ambitious and I'll say yes to everything and work overtime, you've already walked in with something bad about to happen because
Right,
you'll be
right.
getting taken advantage of. And the I've just left my degree and I've just left my internship and this is a first job and I'm just happy to be here, pay me whatever. No, you are
No,
worth the time and the skills and all that stuff that you've put towards things. And like you
absolutely.
said too, Tara, where you're quoting somebody something and they said I could do it myself. Okay, but that's the whole point, right? You're hiring
That's
me
the whole
because
point.
I'm better
You
at
did
it than you are. And
right,
it's not just the time, it's the expertise and the knowledge and
right,
all the other things that go
right.
into it. So this is a great conversation. I really hope that a lot of people are taking away some things. And like I said, I feel like this is a lesson that can constantly be learned because things
I
change
agree.
seasonally,
That's
holidays,
right. That's right.
different
And
times of the
that's
year,
right.
whatever.
And your boundary this month may
Hmm.
may shift
Hmm.
and may not even shift. It just may be totally different next month because you've learned more, you've grown more, you are more open to new ideas. Now, whatever it is, there has been a change, or there could have been a change, and now your boundaries are different, than they were before. I know as a young woman, um, I didn't even know how to spell the word no. I didn't even really know it existed, let alone how to spell it, and that it was part of the boundary conversation. Did not know because I always felt as though I was a people pleaser because of childhood trauma. I did it. People pleaser. all the way up to in my 50s. And then one day I woke up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. Not quite like that, but no, this isn't working for me. I get treated better when I respect my own boundaries, when I put my own healthy boundaries in place. And remember, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to take care of my mental health and my medical health. That's all there is to it. And it's not being selfish. If I'm in a better mental health position and a better physical health position, spiritual or whatever, then I'm able to give more, as you stated earlier. I can give more to you. But if the life is being sucked out of me because I have allowed that, I'm no good to you, really. I'm not giving you my highest and my best. And I think we have to remember, my therapist says this, and I have the best therapist in the world. My therapist made this statement to me when I first started seeing her. And I was going, I didn't do this, and I did blah, 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 blah. She said, always remember we have green and growing edges. Green and growing, and I've never forgotten it. When something comes up, I said, you have green and growing edges. You'll get this. It doesn't have to be today.
I also want to just acknowledge for anybody who's listening to this, rolling their eyes, going, yeah, that sounds great. But I want you to, I'm encouraging you to stop for a second and ask yourself why. Why is it that we are trying to provide advice for you and that you are holding yourself to either this woe is me, or I'll always be in agony, or in a perfect world, but I don't have a perfect world? What is it that you could possibly change? And, or can you come to terms with there are certain things that you might not be able to change? And then can you just be okay with it? Because I guarantee that if somebody's rolling their eyes and shaking their head no to all of the stuff that we're discussing, they're putting an energy out there that somebody is going to ask them to protect and to respect a boundary, and it's going to feel like a personal attack. So I just want everybody to be aware that, we all have, like you were just saying, we all have that moment in time where we have these aha moments. You might not be there yet.
Mhm.
If you're listening and watching this, you might not be there yet, but just know that whatever you're holding in or holding back is definitely projecting onto someone else. People are feeling the effects of it. It's only going to be hurting you more. And it also manifests, right? This is a scientific proven fact. Stress manifests in different kinds of diseases like high
It
blood
does.
pressure and chronic illness and so on. So you're not being any good to yourself or to anyone else. So try to soften your edges if you can. We try to live and lead with kindness and compassion, but some people just like being angry all the time. So I'm just going to say that as a PSA to knock it off and pay attention and listen to let's just all
And
try to get
people,
on same page.
yes. And we have to remember that we don't attract what we want. We
Yeah.
attract who we are.
Yep.
Science is proven over and over again. We
Exactly.
attract who we are.
Those
And when we
energies.
stop,
Hmm.
just what you said
Hmm.
earlier, it is so true. And whether it's in business or in our personal life and business, I would definitely say to people, when you have a client with whom you're having challenges, stop, take a moment. The very chances are the very thing that is rubbing you the wrong way about them is the thing that you are dealing with yourself. I know I have been there, and this is not for everyone, but as Dina said, soften the edges a little bit, take a moment, sip some coffee, tea, or water, whatever your beverage is, lemonade, maybe it's summertime. Um, and think about what's going on and think about what has transpired, and you'll be able to piece together a picture and then have more information for yourself to move forward.
Make that next step. I so appreciate this. As much as I could spend hours speaking with you, Tara, since we're coming up on the end of our discussion, let's talk about a few
Okay.
things. So in a perfect world, obviously everything will go as planned, but in a non-perfect world, which is what we live in, an imperfect world, what are some of your non-negotiables? Like if all else goes not great, what are some things that you absolutely commit to yourself on a daily basis or a weekly basis just to make sure that you are taking care of yourself?
I will not be disrespected. I will not be disrespected. And that is non-negotiable. If I have a client or a family member who is disrespectful after I have expressed my boundaries, or I had a person say that they asked me a question, I answered it, they went off. They went off the rails. And so I thought, you asked the question, I gave you an answer. You don't like the answer? I'm exit stage right, left, up, down. I'm out. I am out. That is a non-negotiable for me. It is non-negotiable to devalue my work, non-negotiable. And that's whether in a relationship or that's in a personal relationship or a business relationship. And that can, in a business relationship, that can, relate to finances and money. I'm not going to do it. My lifetime of and my body of work speaks for itself. I'm not going to do it. So I'm not going to devalue my work. And the third thing that I'm absolutely positively not going to put up with is you being disrespectful of someone else in my presence. I have learned that people only come and gossip with you and talk about others with you because they think of you as the trash can. And if you're no longer the trash can and don't even have one available, and I had to do that. I was like, well, why do they keep telling me stuff? Because you allowed it, Tara. So I was like, okay, let's change the topic. We're not going to do that anymore. And I've had people get upset about that. Okay, that's fine. That is now a healthy boundary of mine because what goes around does come around. It does. It karma is real,
Yep,
and you don't want to be on the negative end of that. So those are
absolutely.
three things that no, 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 no.
It seeps in. My mom and I talk about this too because she gets phone calls from, every single one of our relatives all the time.
Uh-huh.
And she'll say sometimes to me, like, "Oh, I felt really sad and disappointed to hear so and so speak about someone else like this, like in a negative way." And I said, do you think when they're on the phone with that person, they say that about you? Because odds are they probably do. Like,
They
they're not
probably
coming to
do.
you just because you're there to listen. They probably talk about
Right.
this to everyone. So just keep in mind that people show their true characters. Like, you have to be conscientious of that. It's a whole different thing, obviously. If you're coming to somebody with, I have an issue, I have a concern, I'm looking for guidance, could you help me? Versus, I'm just venting 100% of the time that we spend time
Right.
together. Because that, again, that's soul sucking, it's energy draining. And what purpose does it serve? What solution did we get out of
Right.
this?
Right. There is a place like for emotional CPR. There's
Right.
a place for me to just sit with you, let you talk it out. But if you're just going on and on, I am a Mental Health of America warm line worker. And I get calls that I want to be able to say, didn't we talk about this before? And you didn't do anything then. But I can't say that, of course. But I want to. I just don't want to. But I can't say that. And then I have people in my life. I had a relative that, they kept calling. I said, you need to call your therapist. I'm not your therapist. You need to call your therapist. And the therapist eventually told her, told them and said, I'm glad they told you to call me. I'm like, "Yeah, mm-mm, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not because you're not taking the advice. Like I'm giving you advice as a family member, or when you ask for my opinion. I'm not giving you advice from a medical perspective, but I'm like, if you don't like walking the dog, stop walking. But
Exactly.
you keep walking the dog every morning at 5 o'clock. You're walking the dog. No,
Mhm.
you need to go see your therapist. Go see your
Yes.
therapist.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, because then
Yes,
that also helps strengthen the relationship that you should be having with someone else. And it also maybe calls to task whatever they
yes,
need to shed light on and dig a little deeper too. So I appreciate that
yes.
also. That is also a form of boundary setting too, of like, this
It
is
is.
what I can provide to our relationship, and that being your therapist is not part of it. Let's wrap up with a couple of questions. My first
Uh-huh.
question is,
Mhm.
what does the future you look like, whether it's the end of this year, 2 years, 5, 10? What do you have in store for your future goals and pursuits?
My future goal is to get this podcast that I've been continually talking about to get it out. It was supposed to be out last week, but I have a beautiful person who teaches podcasting, and I'm determined to get in their class. And they advised me to wait. And so I said, but because I put my word out there, I've got to go live and do something. So my goal, and hold me to it, Dina, is by this Friday. I know we have the holiday that I will be going live on Facebook with the Talks with Tara C. So I have to get because what happens is I'll say that I'll put it on my calendar and then I'm like, but I don't have this. I don't have this. All I need is a computer or a phone. I have the headphones and just start talking. As we said, I like you say, done is better than perfect. I tell people that all the time. Take your own advice, Tara. So that's the one thing. The second thing is that I am working on a devotional. Originally, I was working on a book, but I'm working on a devotional. And it is going to be out within the next couple of months because I've been tasked to do that, challenged to do that. And it's going to be about our mindset. And I know there are a lot of people out there, but this is going to come from a different perspective about how we see our mindset. And I'm going to use an analogy that people wouldn't even think of analogy. So I will be doing that, yes. And I will, and I will just seek to get more of talks with Tara C out into the world and use that platform to the best of my ability to make the world a better place. And I know that may sound cliche or whatever, but that is my heart's goal. And then in October, I'm going to have an event that's on the schedule. And let me give you that date now. October is the first week of October is always Mental Illness Awareness Month. And I think this year World Mental Health Day is October 10th. So October 12th, I will have an event. It'll be here in Richmond. It might end up being virtual, depending on what the world is doing. But I want the event to come together so that if you've experienced anything that has touched our mental health. And like we said at the very beginning of this, who hasn't? Who has not experienced something? And that's going to be, important to recognize. So I want to be able to do those three things. And I've learned because I'll say I'm going to do this and this and this and this. I'm not because I'm going to get overwhelmed and not prophesying over my life that, but my reality with everything I have to, do is like, no, you need to do three main things and let the main thing be the main thing.
I think there's a saying about that people overestimate how much they can get done in a year because you don't realize what it entails. Sometimes you need a little bit more space. And so if we do have things planned out for 2 months from now, we should have probably started 2 months ago. And that
Absolutely.
stresses me out a little bit. And I love, okay, so the takeaways from just what we just talked about here were the done better than perfect. So for anyone out there who's nervous about starting something, whatever it is, mowing your lawn, writing a book, going onto a dating website, whatever it is, just get out there and put yourself out there. Don't be afraid. Number two, the thing that I heard you saying also is yeah, there everybody like I really truly believe there's no such thing as original thought. Like everybody probably has thought of your idea, our
Yeah,
idea, everyone's
yeah,
wherever you are in the globe. Doesn't mean that you don't get to still talk about it because you, not just you, Tara, anyone who's listening or
yes,
watching this,
yes,
you have a different
yes,
spin. You have a different personality. You have a different group of people who
yes.
feel connected to you. And just like I've heard these analogies too, there's a coffee shop on every corner too. Doesn't stop another coffee shop
It
from
did,
popping up around the
okay.
block, right? There are trees
That's
lining
right.
there are trees lining the streets. Doesn't stop the tree to go and start up lining another street. Just do it. Nobody cares. Just do it. People are probably
Just do it.
waiting for you to do something like that. I know some of my own limitations. I too have been going through quite a lot of physical, mental issues in the last 2.5 years or so. I've just started now
Mhm.
with a rotator cuff injury. So now I'm going to like, 2 times a week for physical therapy and things like this. I have to prioritize, but because I'm prioritizing it,
Yes,
I'm trying not to force myself to make up for the time that I'm spending
right,
away from the office or my computer. It's just like whatever I'm working on, I'll have to wait until next month or whatever. So I
right.
will perhaps be ambitious, but realistic in the things that I think I want to get done by the end of the year. But you're giving me some ideas, my love. Tara, is there anything else that we haven't covered today? Anything else that you wanted to share that didn't naturally come up in our discussion?
This is the thing that I would say to everybody, because I'm in the mental health space. Of course, I'm in a virtual assistant space too. So if you need some help, call me. I got this quote while I was recovering from surgery in 2016. It says, mental health illness, period. It's a disease, not a shame. And I want people to remember that. I really want people to remember that because when God gave it to me, I was like, wow, wow. It's not a shame. If you're struggling, whether you're in the business world, your personal life, whatever it is, what you're going through is not a shame. You are human, human having human experiences. That's it.
Oh, that is so. beautiful and so weighted in the sense of especially for those of us who are a little bit more transparent and vulnerable and putting ourselves out there, we really are trying to normalize and destigmatize the discussions around mental health. But I totally understand because I come from a
Mhm.
family like this as well, where sometimes we don't talk about things like this to each other, or it's swept under the rug, or they don't know how to handle
Yes,
it. Still doesn't mean
yes,
that if you're dealing with something that you can't go out and seek help from some other source. So
absolutely.
there's no shame, like you said, there's no shame. In fact, there are people out here waiting for you to support you if you need their
Mhm.
help. Absolutely, Tara. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so this brings me to my final two questions at the end of every episode. This is kind of like a food pun intended two-parter. So, what is on your plate today? So, figuratively, what are you working on once we disconnect from each other? What's the next thing you're doing? And then, what's the next meal that you'll be having?
What is on my plate today, figuratively speaking, with today is to get this broadcast done by Friday. I've got to get it done because there are people waiting on me. I used to say this years ago, and I still say it throughout the years. There are people waiting on me whom I've never met, and I will just be one stop on their journey to mental health wellness. Just one stop. You know what I really want to do? I really want to have a full blown conference. I want to be able to have that. I want to be able, when I say full blown, in my mind, we're thinking major. It might be a little more minor, but I want to have a conference. I want to have an in-person event so that people can come together because there's something about having that energy in the room. It's something about understanding that you are not alone, even though you may know it's up here in your mind, your heart may not have gotten the message that you are not alone. Whether you're struggling in your business, struggling in relationships, or on your mental health recovery journey, whatever it is, that energy in that room will continue to say to you, you are not alone. And that's what I really, really, really want to do. We just got to figure out how to make that happen in the best possible way to keep me and everybody associated with helping me healthy in every way possible. I got this idea in my head. I had this years ago. I've got some zucchini and I'm gonna scrape the zucchini out and I'm gonna mix it up with some meat and tomatoes and cheese, put it back in the zucchini and bake it. I had that years ago, and it was one of my girlfriends had that recipe, and I was like, oh my God, this is so good. And I've been craving that. Actually, my body's been craving vegetables lately. And so I did the right before we got on, my order came from the store with my vegetables.
That's like a stuffed zucchini boat.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That's
I
what it's
love that.
called.
I love
That's
that.
what it's called.
You
And I
see,
thought,
people can include various things and come up with creative ideas, and that sounds like a very simple thing to do too. It doesn't require a ton of prep, a ton of different millions of ingredients and so on.
no, no,
That's
no.
fantastic. That sounds
Yeah, so that's
delicious.
what I'm gonna have.
It has
Thank
been
you.
an absolute true pleasure getting to catch up with you and
Oh,
to have you
yes.
share your insights with everybody here too. I'm so, so grateful again. I'm so glad we got a chance to meet up. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm so glad we finally got this done.